What's up, guys? This is Cash Shake, Chairman, CEO, and co-founder of Baseball United, the first professional baseball league in the history of the Middle East and South Asia. And you're watching the Legends on Deck podcast with my boys, Brian Koss and David Condi.
There's a funny story when I told you about the Pirates, right? I was a free agent from the White Sox, and I went to the Pirates as a free agent. And if your listeners don't know, you can pick your own number usually when you're, first year guy. And my wife was always 7 in her college career, and I'm asking her, she's in the closet, and she's saying, well, be number 7. I'm like, I'm a cheap ass. I'm not buying somebody a Rolex or paying for numbers. There's always a number 7 on a team, right? Like there is. And she's like, well, then be 77. And I'm like, not gonna be no offensive lineman number. Who the hell? Like, stupid. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Well, don't ask me then. And I said, okay, well, I got all spring training to figure it out, right? Used to be 21 with the Royals. That wasn't happening with the Pirates. So just whatever. I didn't even think about it, right? Go to bed, wake up the next day, have breakfast, go to the park. In my locker is hanging 77, bro.
Wow.
And I'm like, out of all the numbers I could have been, it's that one.
Fielder to Bobby Crosby. He makes a nice play over there. Hide it in the top of the ninth with a solo shot down the right field line. McGee will chopper to third. Charging is Crosby. He gloves and throws. And Carrasco has
grown ups in between churning babies. Right about now, it's your boy, you heard, back again. DJ Manny, fresh. Yeah, fresh. Step up to the mic, dude. Do what you do.
Ladies and gentlemen, what you have here is brought to you courtesy of the young man, Young Carter, and the great man, Manny Fresh. So what I want y'all out there to do for me is say this. Say go DJ, 'cause that's my DJ. 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 Heard of 101, the hottest under the sun. I come from under the Tommy. You come from under your garment, your chest and your arm hit. Pow, one to the head. Now you know heat. Now you know I play.
Welcome to episode 87 of the Legends on Deck podcast. I'm Brian Koss, along with my co-host, David Condi. Today's guest is a former MLB pitcher, scout, coach, and ambassador. He pitched 9 seasons in the big leagues with the Royals, White Sox, Pirates, D-backs, and Mets from 2003 to 2012. He is the founder of Na7ive Na7ions, an organization dedicated to bringing baseball and softball to Native American youth. DJ Carrasco, welcome to the show.
Good evening, everybody. How are you?
Good. Thank you
Good.
for being here. We just want to get started. Kind of the first question, which is all about you. When did it all start for you? When did you wake up one day and say, "Hey, baseball is the game I want to play. It's the love of my life." Kind of go into where you grew up, who introduced you to the game, and some of your fondest memories of this amazing game.
Right. So I've told that story a lot lately with the whole Na7ive Na7ions thing, but I remember living with my pops in Safford, Arizona, a real small town, and we used to watch the Los Angeles Dodgers, and his favorite player was Pedro Guerrero, right? I couldn't put 2 and 2 together to understand these guys were actually making a career of the game that I was playing at the fairgrounds with my cousins all the time. And so I figured it was just like a soap opera, just like the women were watching Dallas at the time. Right? I couldn't comprehend at 8 years old what I was watching. I just watched it with pops. And then I remember coming in one day and I seen kids playing on TV. It was the Little League World Series. I didn't know this at the time. But I seen people like me, my peers, playing on TV. And I was like, dang, Dad, how are they on TV? And then he explained to me that, like, look, you make the right decisions. You keep your nose to the grinding wheel. You work your butt off. And, if you're good enough, you too can play on TV like these kids. And he says, those guys that we watch every night, Pedro Guerrero, he was once a kid like that and played. I didn't even realize that, like, boys grow up to be men like that at the time. I was just a kid, blind, just playing on the railroad tracks and doing my thing. And so I think that was the epiphany at such a young age, the understanding of I want to play baseball on TV. I didn't know that meant be a big leaguer. I just knew it was meant play on TV because I seen kids like me doing the same thing me and my cousins were doing. So that's where it started. I mean, there are so many stories of like fun times, and I don't know if you want me to get into that now or some of my fondest memories of the big leagues. Obviously, it's always your debut, right? And I think I was fortunate to come up in Kansas City. We weren't expected to be a really good ball club. The pressure wasn't there as much. I got up like 2 days in a row and didn't get in the game, so I had to burn a lot of nervous energy. And I remember coming in and facing Brian Dahlback was my first hitter. And all I thought was just do not give up a home run. Like whatever you do, don't give up a home run. I'm like, I'm throwing a sinker middle away. It's going to be on the black or off the plate. Like I'm just going to throw a ball for number one so I don't give up a bomb. And it's like, so a little backstory. I was in A ball and got Rule 5 to the big league. So I was playing with young men, now playing with men, like 30 pounds heavier, have seen 1,000 sliders. Like I made a jump that was really, really big. And I had never had to face, other than that spring training, guys that could hit a ball and still drive the shit out of a ball, right? Like that wasn't happening in A ball. Anyway, so I go first pitch sinker away, sets up there, I throw it out of the hand. It feels like a good pitch. And Brian goes out there and goes and gets it. And it's got the right trajectory to be a bomb. And I'm like, oh my God, I shouldn't have thought of that, right? Because I'm a big like positive affirmation guy. And I see Raul Ibanez turn around, and then he's like 2 steps from the track and he goes ahead and catches it. And then he throws it in the stands. And I'm like, bro, when he gets in, I'm like, that was my first pitch, my major league ball, bro. He's like, oh no. And he's such a sweet guy. He ended up trading like 2 bats and another ball for my rookie ball. And I'm sure he lost out on that deal big time, but that was probably the fondest memory of obviously my career starting. And there's just so many fun. I was one of the jokesters on every team that I was at. But the one story I will tell you guys that I will never forget in the big leagues, and probably my favorite, has nothing to do with me, but I was with the Royals and we were playing in Chicago at the time, the White Sox. And this was before like running on the field was a felony, right? Like now, now you get the smack put down on you. Then it was just like, yeah, everybody's having fun. And there was a kid in the 7th inning, young college kid, jumps over the fence and like left center field and kind of runs into center field. And here goes the bullpen security guard, and there's like another cop there, and our security guard was probably 280, overweight, bad health. And he's just kind of just making his way out there while the other in shapes, police and security guards are getting out after this guy. And he probably lasted a good 30 seconds before he petered out and got tackled. And, game goes on, 8th inning, another dude jumps the fence. Like, these got to be like a trio, 3 Musketeers or something. This dude hops the fence, and we're like, go get him, TK, go get him, right? Now he's already still wheezing from the first time he jogged out there. And there goes everybody else again, right? They're running after this dude. He's, stiff arms a couple guys. He probably lasts about 1:30. And the crowd going wild. And then, take him off the field. 9th inning. The final dude jumps the fence. This dude's got to be 260, 6'4", just shredded, bro. He takes his shirt off and he just starts waving it in center field. Come on. Like he's calling all these security guards out, right? And they're already pooped out because they've never had to do this. This is the 3rd dude, and he looks like freaking Urlacher just jumped on the field, right? And so they're going, and literally they're bouncing off this dude. He's freaking just throwing guys. He's not hitting anybody, but he's just not letting them take him down. Like, and the crowd, he's like 2.5 minutes into this thing, and the crowd just going ape shit. And all of a sudden, some guy finally gets him around the waist, and he has like those parachute pants, and they come down to his ankles. And that's the only way they got him, because it tripped him up. Like he couldn't get those full strides, and he goes down. But when he goes down, his boxers he had was the USA flag boxers. And so 50,000 people just started chanting, USA, USA. And it was the best thing ever. All the security guards the next day wore like soccer spikes because they were just getting juked and just wiping out. So that's my absolute favorite story in the big leagues when it comes to like fan engagement, and just everybody was on the same page at that game. So that was really cool. Fond memory of mine, man.
I want to ask one question. You pitch in the minors, come to the majors. When you're standing on the mound, and I don't know how many fans you pitched in front of in the minors, but pitching on a major league field, what is your thought on that first moment? What are you thinking about? Are you paying attention to the fans? Are you kind of trying to stay focused? Are you nervous? Like, what was that mindset?
Well, I say this a lot of times. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are 4A players, man, that just they're plenty good enough to be in the big leagues. They just can't do it with pressure. And to me, I always say like pressure is what's in a tire because it doesn't touch you. It's what you manifest inside yourself. And I'm not saying I'm great at it or whatever, but I was blessed with the ability where it didn't affect me as much as I seen other people. Now, whether that's training or like I think that's part of who we are when we grow up and the situations you're put into as you're younger and those positions you're put into. It's a practice, right? It's a practice to pitch in front of 20 people at a high school game, 50 people at a winter ball game, 2,000 in a minor league game. But you can't mimic a big league stadium in the minor leagues, right? But I just had the innate ability where it was my issue was getting too excited and too amped up internally. I wasn't scared. I didn't care about what anybody thought. I can care less what anybody thinks on that. And so for me, it was just a process of understanding how to control the geek is what I call it. And I mentioned earlier in my first story, like, thank God I had those first two outings where I burned off that energy thinking I was going to go into a game and I didn't. So that was my warm up to actually going into a game. So it's some of the best feeling in the world is when you're on the mound and you're either getting booed or cheering and like your chest just vibrates, right? Because it's all directed towards you. Like, what a blessing to be that guy that everybody loves or hates, man, because you could be irrelevant, right? Like you could be in the middle of nowhere and just be irrelevant. So, yeah, there's guys that are plenty good enough. They just let that so-called pressure affect their decisions and their ability to perform under it.
Cool. Yeah, for sure. That's pretty interesting, actually. So 1995, you're drafted, right, by the Rangers in the 39th round, which doesn't even exist anymore.
That's right.
They cut the draft down to 20 rounds. So you drafted out of high school, and then you make it to the big leagues by 2003. So you spent 8 years playing minor league baseball, something like that, right? So what is that minor league path like, or what was it like for you? Everyone's got, pretty grind, stories about the minor league grind and what that takes to elevate to from the draft to the big league level.
Yeah. That's I don't know if you got enough gigabytes on your plan for this one. I'll try and I'll probably jump around, but I think it's important to, not because of me, but maybe for any young listeners or coaches that have young listeners that are like, just facing disparity and this will never happen, right? Like in no world was I ever supposed to make it to the big league statistically or whatever happens with those drafts, right? And so you're right. And out of high school, I was drafted by the Rangers. I lost my mom that freshman year in junior college, and I just fell into a black hole, man. I got like 3 at-bats and maybe 4 or 5 innings pitched in junior college. It was, coming off of 2 all-state years, I just fell off the face of the earth, right? I was going in a bad path really quick, and I figured out I had to get out of California, and so I went to be with my family in Arizona for a little bit more support. And so I didn't sign that first year. I went ahead and played junior college in Tucson. And I made all conference as a utility player because I was a good hitter and a good pitcher. I had a good arm. I wasn't a really good pitcher, but at that time yet, more of a hitter. And dude, through this process, I told my scout that don't ever talk to me like that. My dad doesn't talk to me like that, and hung up on him because he was cussing me out. Like, so there goes that draft after junior college year with the Orioles. I'm like, well, I'm going to college and going to play, hit and pitch at Washington State. Olerud kind of set that path for me. So I basically told him to piss off, right? And then the next day he calls me with his cross checker, Logan White, and hey man, you're gonna start today. I talked to your coach, try and throw all your pitches for strikes. And I'm like, bro, I haven't thrown in 2.5 months, man. Yeah, well, just do what you can. Anyway, I throw like a 2-hit shutout in 7 innings, hit a bomb in the first game, and I'm like leading the league in home runs, and I'm trying to like advocate for myself to be a hitter, not a pitcher. Long story short, I signed really late, and I go to Lakeland, Florida. And have instructs, right? And it was just a horrible experience for me there. And Jerry Harrison was my first roommate, and it was just, thank God he was, because he's such a funny guy and kept me kind of grounded at the time. And I never played a professional game for the Orioles. I got released that next spring training because of some issues with my roommate, and there's some drinking problems there, and I was just guilty by association. And then I ended up figuring out, well, look, I can't miss out on a full year. I've already I'm already missing out on some school year because I signed so late, and now I got released in spring training. And so my uncle had some friends in the Cleveland Indian organization, and I signed there, and these guys wanted me to just stay straight over the top. At that time, it was a big deal to be downhill playing, and it's harder to hit. And I was always a lower 3/4 arm slot guy, and my velocity went from like 92 to like 86. Like I was literally throwing knuckleballs every batting practice because the only way to get to the big leagues was like Wakefield, be a knuckleballer. I'm a righty throwing 86 is not making it to the big leagues, but they wouldn't let me change my arm slot. And I'm watching these guys swing at shit in the dirt and over their head. And I'm like, I'm a much better hitter than anybody that I'm watching right now. Right. And I went and managed Ted Kubiak. I remember the name. And I asked him, hey, I want to come back next year as a hitter because I have no future pitching. Like I know that, right? And he said, well, let me talk to Shapiro, and they thought I was full of crap, and they wanted me to come back to pitch. And I said, well, give me my release because I don't want to pitch, right? And he thought I was crazy, and so did everybody else on the team. That I asked for my release, and we're going to be going down a playoff run. And I came home and played fast pitch with my dad, and the Nationals is probably some of the funnest diamond sports I've ever played, right? A young minor league, just out of college guy playing fast pitch with my dad and my uncles, and their kind of back end of their old fart days. And it was just great. We won the tournament and went to the Nationals, and I couldn't sniff a freaking rise ball. I probably punched out like 12 out of 14 times, right? And I'm asking my release because I want to come back and hit. Like I had no credential to hit at all, but whatever. That was my young mind. And so that off season, I work out with the local junior college and just keep as a hitter, never pitched, just kept hitting. And at that time, we didn't have like such a robust Facebook and all these kind of platforms for recruiting. That was me basically AOL emailing and actually some snail mail baseball almanac, looking at all the independent balls and all the minor leaguers and just sending them DJ stats. This is who he is, and kind of promoting myself. And we had a workout when the White Sox were in Arizona at the Arizona Diamondbacks in Keno. And I had one independent ball guy come out to watch me. And I made the final cut with the White Sox as an outfielder, corner infield guy, hit the shit out of the ball. And he's like, dude, I will sign you. Like, we have spring training in 2 months. Let's do it. And at that time, one of the coaches says, hey, did you play for the Indians last year? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, you're a pitcher? I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to pitch. I want to hit. Like, that's why I'm hitting. He said, you want to throw a bullpen? And it just I kind of thought like this is when Kotsay was a big deal, right? When Long Beach would come out from center field and just shut the door on guys and drop bombs every other time. And I told the guy, Mel Fitchman was his name. I said, hey, Mel, I'll show you that I can maybe close for you, but I'm not going to be a pitcher only. Like if you want me, that's going to be as an outfielder kind of deal or corner infielder. And so I go through a bullpen for the White Sox. On the spot, they offered me a contract in the minor leagues to be a pitcher, and I turned it down. And everybody thought I was smoking crack then too. But that's now the Indians, the Orioles. I got released, and now I'm turning down another contract for the White Sox. And Mel was happy, and I'm like, this is what I want to do. I don't want to be an old man sitting on a recliner, just regretting that I didn't follow my heart. Right, my dream was to always be a big league hitter. And so I go home, I sign with the Independent Ball Club, and I'm good to go. I'm going to report in a couple months and keep hitting. And I get a call from the Pirates, and the scout's name McLean, and he's like, hey, DJ, I got some good news and bad news for you. I'm like, what's the good news, bro? Like, hit me. He's like, we're going to purchase your contract. You're going to be part of affiliated baseball again. Like, you can have a chance to become the big leaguer again, And I'm like, cool. Obviously, these guys know I just turned down 3 contracts to hit, so I'm going to get a chance to hit with the Pirates. Well, here comes the bad news, right? The bad news is we don't want you to hit. We want you to be a pitcher. We like it the way the ball comes out of your hand. And I'm like, dude, what if I don't want to pitch? Like, obviously I don't want to pitch, or I would have taken the offer. He's like, I'm not saying we'll do it, but we technically could suspend your rights for the next 5 years, right? And he's like, look, son, just your spring training doesn't start for 2 months. We start in 2 weeks. Like, our spring training will be over before yours starts. So if you make the team, great. If you don't, you're not going to lose out on your spring training for the independent ball. Go and hit. And I was like, well, that makes a lot of sense, right? And so, okay. So in order just to keep like contracts legal and easy, they signed me for $1. They were, typically that's $1,000 contract. The player gets $250 and the organization gets the rest. But in my case, that's kind of like an experiment before spring training even started. So they just put $1 on the contract, and here we go. And so I show up in my Ken Griffey high tops, no pitching toe, my outfielder's glove. And by the second game, I already got a hole in that thing, bro. And my and my spikes. I'm already getting made fun of because I got like a 12.5-inch glove up on the mound. But I'm just dealing, like I'm getting outs, and they're like, oh, this kid's got some good stuff. And I'm thinking, damn, I got some good stuff. Like, I don't know where this came from. Maybe I just needed the time off. But the thing was, the blessing was that they paid $1 for me. So this was no longer a thing. It was me here now, like my natural slot where the ball would just do whatever it needed to do. And so I had instant success. One of the gentlemen on my team was Josh Bonifay, who's the minor league director for the Rangers now. But his dad, Cam Bonifay, was the general manager at the time for the Pirates. And I would always tell Josh, hey, tell your dad he owes me 25 cents. Like, that's my bonus that per my contract I'm supposed to have. Of course, he never told his dad that, but I would always give him shit about it. And so, you know, part of the minor league stories of there's some grinds in the middle of that. There's me quitting, slamming the door, and calling out our minor director. Like, I'm not a bad guy, but when you're messing with my career and you can't tell me the truth, and so we can get into that if you want a little bit, but I just want to kind of keep going through the story. Fast forward 4 years with the Pirates, I end up getting Rule 5 to the big leagues, and I kind of shared that first game there. Another 5 years in the big leagues, and I become a free agent. And so here's where this is really cool, right? So I'm a free agent now, and I screwed up, and I turned down making more money for the Giants when they won the World Series. And I went to Pittsburgh because I wanted to have a chance to start. And so Neil Huntington now was the GM and, you know, different general manager. He had no clue who DJ was in the minor leagues at that time, whatever, 7 years before. And I told Neil, he called me after him and my agent got the deal done. Hey, congratulations, DJ. Great to have you in the org and this and this. I said, hey, Neil, I got 2 questions for you. He's like, what do you got? I said, I want a signing bonus. And he's like, whoa, bro, we already got done with, like, there's no signing bonus. We did all that already. Like, we got your incentives and all that. And I said, but you got to hear me out, man. And so I tell him this story about before you were a general manager. In your archives, you're going to see a DJ Carrasco contract somewhere, and it has $1 on it. I said, I want a copy of that contract, if not the original contract, and I want a 25-cent check from the Pirates because that's the signing bonus you owe me. And he's laughing. And I'm like, bro, I'm dead serious. Like, you don't understand what I had to go through as a 39th round pick. The industry didn't think very much of me to pay $1 for me, right? Like, so, like, I want my 25 cents, bro. Now, because now I'm a big leaguer. I'm not a minor leaguer now, right? And he's laughing. He's like, okay, we'll get that to you. And all spring training, I don't have my check yet. And I'm like, dude, where's my freaking check, man? So finally he gives it to, you know, I throw like an empty thread about, I ain't pitching until I get my 25 cents. He's like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay, we'll get it over to you. So at home, I can pull it up on my phone because it's what I'm worth, right? I got a 25-cent check and $1 contract at home frame, bro. That's how far I came from. Like, there's grinds all the way up to that, but I just think that's such a cool story that, you know, some of these kids that don't think there's ever a future, you just don't know, right? But that's not me talking to how to be relevant. Like, obviously the cream rises to the top in some aspect, but there was plenty of guys better than me. I was just a lot different than them, right? And that's where I put myself in a bucket, was being different, changing arm slots, cutters, sliders, curveballs, bouncing stuff, like not following the norm, because I didn't throw 97. I couldn't do what those guys could do. So the understanding and the growing as a young man to a young adult was part of the reason I had success and stuck around. So I had to share the $1 contract story because
Good, man.
I tell kids that, dude, they love it, man. And it just shows that, like, it doesn't matter what people think of you, it's what you think of you, man. If you can stay with it, you'll have a chance. So yeah.
So looking back at the teams you've played for, okay, well, you and I have talked off the show and kind of mentioned a team that you didn't want to play for. We don't have to mention that one. But looking back at the teams that you got opportunities with, what is probably the team that you enjoyed the most? Maybe the ball players, or just the atmosphere, or kind of.
Yeah, I mean, there's always individual guys. Like, love me some Mike Sweeney. He was a great dude, big brother to me when I was a rookie, but hands down the White Sox. Like, I've played on some bad teams. I've played on some really young and immature teams that didn't know what it took to be a big leaguer. But the White Sox was a whole nother level. These guys would show up ready to win. Everybody knew their job. I mean, you're talking about Hall of Famers, man, like Tomey, Griffey. You got Burley, Canerco, Contreras, like Jermaine Dye. I mean, it goes on and on and on. AJ, like, these are some studs. Bobby Jinks, Linebrink, Dotel, poor Dotel, man. Like that one got me the other day when
Yeah, man.
what happened to Dotel. One of my favorite guys, and I have some great stories about Dotel we can share in honor of him and his laugh and his voice and all that. But hands down, White Sox, man. We went to the playoffs and we just crushed some teams, and it was just really good to play with professionals.
You know, and you also mentioned that you started, well, you did in your career 1 year in 2005, you became a starter, started 20 games out of the 21-year period. And what shifted you back to being in the relief again? Was
Well,
it?
so the starting, I was a reliever closer in the minor leagues, and what happened was that year in Kansas, Greinke, I think it was a sophomore year. There was a lot of young starting rotation guys, and they were just deathly afraid of contact. Like these guys were throwing 3 to 4 innings with 100 pitches, and there was a mandate come down from the general manager, like pound the freaking zone, guys, right? And I had been sent down that second year for whatever it might have been, just contractual time against on the clock and so on and so forth. And I'm like, hey, I don't care I'm not afraid of contact. Let me start, right? And so I go to the minor leagues and have, I don't know, 3 or 4 starts, and I'm efficient, right? And so they call me up and I start in the big leagues. I wasn't very good. My strategy was to stick around, was to not, get deep into count, like pitch count. And by doing that, I didn't strike out a lot of guys. I mean, I was pretty shitty, to be honest with you. But at that time, with that team, that's what they needed, was some length. And so I had a lot of quality starts, and the stats weren't quality stats, but the starts were. But that was still young, my second year in, when I didn't really know, I haven't developed a cutter yet, and I didn't know how to pitch as good. And fast forward to when Pittsburgh, we were talking about that opportunity, I was a different pitcher then. And I knew how to pitch around and create weak contact early, and not just be a sinker slider guy. So yeah, that's kind of how the evolution of starting. And when I went to Japan, I started there, and so I enjoyed that opportunity to have 5 days off, because there's no mental break as a reliever, bro. If you looked at the numbers, there's a 3-year period where I led all the major leagues in innings pitched out of the bullpen. That means you're ready to go. Bro, there's not 5 days that I can count in my career as a reliever that I knew I had off. I knew 3 days out of all those years that I was off as a reliever. So that's why I had Grays at like 26, man. That 100%.
And it's probably what you just mentioned about Dotel, and of course, the passing, horrific passing of his life, and he was such a great ball player as well. And I'm sure at that time when you're finding your own in the league, and you have other guys that do the same thing you do, but that you guys can lean on each other, learn from each other, build the brothership, the brotherhood together. So it's tough when one of your brothers, unfortunately passes, but at least you have that memories of what you guys experienced when you were on the field together, battling on the field. So I think that's, at least you have that to look back to.
Well, and then not only that, like in his passing, it brings some of the other relationships that we might not have reached out to as often. Like, Paulie, have you heard about this? And Linebrink, did you hear about that? And so we were able to, kind of re-talk to some of the teammates that we might not talk to otherwise. And so, yeah, there's just, as a younger guy, or him as a veteran and not having success, and like there's a lot of those parts that we all play on and off the field, and in hotel rooms, and stories, and try this and do that, and come visit me in Dominican, and all those kind of deals, man. It's just, let's face it, like we are more of a brotherhood than sometimes our family is, man, and our wives. It's sad to say that, but we're at the park more with each other than we're at home with our wives, awake anyway, so they're our backbones. Like, we are each other's brotherhood, man. And so when you see some stuff like that, and we're the same age, like that's even weirder, right? Like if the guy was 30 years older than me, there's just a disconnect. It doesn't happen a lot. But when you went into the trenches together and relieved each other, and went out and had drinks together, like it hits different, man.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry about the loss too, to that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Also, so I'm going to ask you this question, and this is changing the mood a little bit, but as a relief pitcher, right? So you've kind of gone back and forth between relief and starting. And I've asked pitchers this question before, and I always ask it because it's so interesting to me. What is the mental prep? I think it's mental and probably physical too. Switching between starting pitching and bullpen and relief work, because it's like a whole different mindset that you have to have. I say that the starting pitcher is like the quarterback. They prepare for 5 days to come in and make a start, and then they make their start, and then they're off for another 5 days, and they're trying to. So it's a different mentality.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that a little bit?
I think in both roles, you got to have that short memory. Like that's it, number one. And you have a chance to kind of reset the memory as a reliever every night. You have a bad one, then you have two good, like so the bad one's gone, right? But you got to sit on 5 days of a bad outing, and you just never know. Like as a reliever, you have more chances because I feel like as a big leaguer, you're going to be on more times than you're off. Like you just are. Like you're not always on, but like if I go throw 7 games, like 6 of those, I'm probably going to have 3 of my good pitches, and I won't struggle as much. But if and if I get a start twice a week and one of them was bad, bro, that's a long time to get it back. But you have more time to study, and I think the biggest thing back in my era was I think it's different now, is you want to pace yourself. You don't want to expose your pitches. You want to try and get through the lineup using fastball, maybe something else if you can. Now it's like throw it all, right? And so it's like a starter with a reliever mentality, because the way the game goes is just next. That 200 inning guy, every team doesn't have those guys anymore. Like 2 to 3 of those, every team back in my day would have those guys. And so that number one is the biggest deal, is just there's no pacing yourself anymore. You can go out there and throw all your pitches because you only got to get through the lineup twice. Statistically, They're gonna pull you the third time anyways, unless you got something special going. So I think that's the thing from then to now in my mind, how that would be.
For sure, they've switched that whole mentality of like let the starter go as long as he could go.
Yep.
I've watched some of these games, and they've got the aces on the mound, and they're like 6 innings of lights out baseball, and then 7th inning we got a new pitcher.
Yeah, Tampa did that a while back. I mean, that happens all the time, and it just gets exposed in the World Series, right? I've been out of that kind of portion of the game for a little bit now, but I would love to see what like reliever effectiveness is in that last month, because of how many times they were, not even innings, but how many times they were used the whole year, because of the starter doesn't go as far, right? Because I've seen relievers at the All-Star break, you ain't touching that dude, and then in the World Series, like down that playoff run, that slider is just not the same slider, and it's a different deal. And I don't think it's because it's a bigger stage and they're not scared or pressure. It's the workload that they've had since spring training.
Well, I think I'll touch on that a little bit with the Mets. Last season they had a great run at the end, and you start to see guys start not to pitch as well in the postseason, right? And everybody's wondering, oh, what's wrong with him? What's wrong with him? Oh my God! Do you see how long the season was? Do you see how much they used them? Do you see, it's and I don't know if the mindset is you don't expect to go into the postseason and play the next level. Do you start to shut down at the end of the season? Do you continue to like have that mentality of moving forward? When teams are not expected, like the Mets weren't, to continue going on, the reliever is kind of like, okay, end of the season mode. You got to gear it up again. So there's a lot of that goes on that I don't think fans really understand, how on the day-to-day situation.
Yeah, I think some more optics on that is probably around just the way the game is developed nowadays, right? Like back in our day, we used to take time off until, call it Thanksgiving, New Year's, and then pick up a ball again. Mm-hmm. These guys are like, they might not be throwing year round, they're moving that arm year round, and they're lifting year round. Like they're doing a lot of things that shows up at the end of the year, man. Like I just know from how much I threw, and I did, like if I were to do what I did year round, I did that trying to make it to the big leagues, going to winter ball and all of that, and my arm was about to fall off. Like it was pop some pills to get the pain to go away, and that shows up in the box score, man, because you didn't hit your spot, it didn't cut enough, or whatever that may be. There is some truth to what you said about like turning the mind off a little bit, because the body follows, man. One of the worst things I thought, for me anyways personally, was that all-star break when you get 3 days off. Like you need those 3 days, but if you take those 3 days, like literally the collarbone, the clavicle, like stuff starts moving back into shape, because it's not natural to throw that much every day. And then it takes you 3 or 4 days to get back. But the mental off days, you have to take those mental off days, because that's where it also, the body understands like, okay, I can recover now. It's just catch. I'm not throwing for the next 3 days. You're just playing catch. And so there's a little bit of truth to everything.
Yeah, sure. We're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to talk about that logo in your screen there. The Na7ive Nations project that you've been a part of, or founder of, right? So Native Nations is an organization built to bring softball and baseball to Native Americans, right? So tell us how that started, how you developed this idea or got involved, and what that's all about.
Right. So I think I shared a little bit of the story earlier where I walked in and seen these little kids playing, right? And so
Yeah.
I'll touch on that as we get through the story. But after my playing days, I shared with you that I lost my mom when I was a freshman in college. And so a little bit more on that, she passed in a kayaking accident in New Zealand. And so when I finally retired, me and my wife took a trip to New Zealand to kind of walk her footsteps and see everything that she had seen, and fell in love with the country. Amazing country. The indigenous people, the Maori there, we are now have friends for life. Whānau in their language is what we call them, and just loved it. We got back, and my wife says, "When are we going home?" And I'm like, "Babe, we are home." She's like, "No, back to New Zealand." And so I'm like, "Well, I wonder if New Zealand has a baseball program, right?" Like this is how the MLB stuff started, the ambassadorship. And they had a gentleman there, Ryan Flynn was his name, that was in charge of baseball in New Zealand. I had some friends at MLB, Paul Archie, put two and two together. Now I'm an ambassador. MLB is going to pay for the trip. And it just started there, right? It was grassroots, college speaking, youth national tournaments, youth international tournaments, WBC staff, integrating the indigenous with the Kiwis, bringing together a team. So they have their own national team, right? Their own WBC Olympic teams. Like they're recognized. And so fast forward several years, probably worked with New Zealand maybe 10 different, 10 years out of 12. I was also one of their assistant general managers to their first ever professional team they had in the ABL, the Australian Baseball League, for a while. I was their pitching coach as well. So did some really fun things at their highest level, into the youth little kid level as well. And so I got home, and there was some events about just trying to get back into the game. I scouted with the Dodgers and coached, and COVID happened, and I enjoyed being home more than I did on the road. So I kind of got away from the game in that aspect. And then one day I'm just thinking about, like, we have some cousins that are natives, and like, what I play in I'm almost 50, bro, and I still punch tickets in res ball tournaments. Like, it's fun. I still have fun doing it, whatever. I could probably throw like mid 80s still. I'm just a rubber band, man. But I play with my peeps, and we just have a great time, man. And so I'm like, but there's no Native American national program. There's no Olympic native team, no indigenous native team in the Olympics and the WBC and any of that. And that's why I just started putting in a lot of work and started researching. And there's a lacrosse team that's trying to get to that Olympic representation. And I've been working not necessarily with them, but supporting them and understanding their plight. And the firm that supports them is now one of our pro bono for my nonprofit of Native Nations. And I like to say, man, we've gotten a long ways. Like, me and the wife have plugged away at this for the last 2.5 years. So it's not just for natives. Like, yeah, they're going to be the people that are represented, but it's for the world, man. Like, I have Olympic aspirations of a Native American national team in the Olympics in every sport. It's just starting with diamond sports. And so we were really close to having an exhibition game against Team China in that WBC qualifier in Tucson a couple months ago. So now MLB, the Players Association, like, everybody knows who we are, what we're trying to do. We have the first of its kind intra-national charter with Babe Ruth, Cal Ripken. So boys and girls 8 to 18, we have an opportunity to put them in their World Series, right? And so that's what we're looking at doing this year. Pony League, we have similar talks with them. Little League, we've had talks. We're also now, as late as last month, officially affiliated with MLB RBI's program, that comes with all the fun stuff of pitch, run, throw, and pitch, hit, run, whatever that stuff is, and play ball tour, and all kinds of just really cool programming, just to bring an awareness. Like, so the next time we talk, hopefully there's going to be some ESPN footage. There's some articles about us going on right now in the background. So really exciting stuff. Rawlings is on board. Like, there's just a whole bunch of really cool steam that's going along with this, and the more chance the merrier. And you guys are really the first social media piece that I've put it out with. So we have a website, nativenations.com, with sevens, not T's. So that would be a really good place for people to just kind of get an understanding of what we're doing and who we are and what we're trying to be.
Can you share a little bit more about the sevens?
Yeah.
I love the logo, and I see the N and I see the 7. So you kind of share the meaning behind that, and
Yeah, so I'm not a numerology guy, but I am like a God guy. And there's a funny story when I told you about the Pirates, right? I was a free agent from the White Sox, and I went to the Pirates as a free agent. And if your listeners don't know, you can pick your own number usually when you're first year guy. And my wife was always 7 in her college career, and I'm asking her, she's in the closet, and she's saying, "Well, be number 7." I'm like, I'm a cheap ass. I'm not buying somebody a Rolex or paying for numbers. There's always a number 7 on a team, right? Like there is. And she's like, well, then be 77. And I'm like, there can be no offensive lineman number. Who the hell? Like, stupid. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Well, don't ask me then. And I said, okay, well, I got all spring training to figure it out, right? Used to be 21 with the Royals. That wasn't happening with the Pirates. So just whatever. I didn't even think about it, right? Go to bed, wake up the next day, have breakfast, go to the park. In my locker is hanging 77, bro.
wow.
And I'm like, out of all the numbers I could have been, it's that one. And there's some really cool 77 stories I'm not going to get into. And so I just like, look, she called it. That's what I'm going to be. I'm going to be 77, right? And so fast forward to your question in Na7ive Nations and what's the 7 about? The president of our board is a former chairman and a current council member, is a senior vice president at University of Arizona for Native American engagement and awareness. And I'm playing with these fonts before, right? About trying to hide 7s in the name, just so I can have a little piece of DJ as part of it, right? Like I wanted to just know I had a little piece of this thing because it's a legacy product in my opinion. Like, and at some point I don't want to run it. Like that's going to be somebody that have this torch passed on to, right? And I'm just talking him through. I'm like, Levi, what do you think? And what does it say? And he says, oh, it says Na7ive Nations because the font, the 7 looked like a T, right? I put a line through it and made it kind of hide it. And I'm like, no, because I can't lie, man. I'm like, there's 2 7s in there, man. I want a little bit of me in that. And he's quiet. I'm like, oh shit, I pissed him off. I'm like, are you there? And he didn't say anything. And I'm like, oh no, like I'm gonna change this. Like that, it's not about me, but I wanted a piece of it, right? And so he's like, DJ, have you ever heard of 7 generational thinking? And I'm like, Levi, I haven't, right? And he says, so in several different indigenous cultures and native cultures around the world, 7 generational thinking could slightly be different, right? But basically, the decisions we make today are going to affect the next 7 generations in the future. So with the respect and the honor and the foresight on the decisions we make now, we hand these off to the future generations. In his culture, it's 3 generations back, his current generation, and 3 forward. So you honor in the back. But so it's some version of the decisions we make are going to affect 7 generations, right? Whether it's forward or backwards or anything. So, and I think the world would be a much better place if everybody lived by that. And it's something I didn't hear of, right? Like I grew up Mexican American. I have some Tewa Pueblo roots in the native lineage, but I didn't know that. Like we ate beans and rice and tortillas, right? We weren't eating rye bread at the time. So it was, I didn't know some of that stuff. So it was really cool. And I'm like, you know what? I love it, man. Like the 7s in the Na7ive Nations makes all the sense in the world.
It's almost like full circle, right? Like
yeah,
you thought about the number was just something that your wife had, and then the team happens to place it there. It's not coincidence because I don't believe anything's coincidence.
That's
and
right.
then it comes into the name, and it just brings full circle as to where you began to where you're at now, what you're trying to accomplish.
You know, my journey to the big leagues is God's hands when it was in there everywhere I went. Like at the time I was too immature to understand that, but looking back now and anytime there's any kind of major decisions or pathways, like that number pops up as confirmation, man. And again, I'm not a numerology guy. Like I'll pray on some of this stuff and just the craziest thing, like the whole pathway that I took is, I think it's to lead me to this right now, honestly. One of my favorite 77 stories is when I was an ambassador in New Zealand, we went to a town called Porirua. And Porirua was the equivalent of like Compton, South Central, Watts of that area. Gang bangers, all the this and that. They're a rough and tough area, apparently. And I was helping a lady by the name of Betty Bishop with her team, right? She was a softball player, and we would run practice and had some good fond memories of all the practices and just showing her drills for about a week straight. And we met up for like lunch or something on the hillside over the beach and looking, and she shows up in this pullover, right? And so Porirua starts with a P. They claimed the Pirates as that was their set, right? Because it was a P, golden P. Like, so everybody wore that, like Bloods and Crips, it was P. And so she shows up with the Pirates number 77, like embroidered in it. I'm like, that's pretty cool. Like I made that much of an impact on this lady that she went out and got this thing embroidered, right? Like, damn, I never, that's pretty special, I thought, right? And I'm like, okay, I got to figure out how to ask this or whatever, because we had spent like a week and a half already at this point together. And so we get to talking. I'm like, Betsy, where did you have that made? She's like, oh, this old thing. And she's like, I've had this for like 25 years when I played on the Black Sox. So she was on their Olympic softball team, and her number was 77, bro. And I'm like,
Oh, wow.
there's no other pirate in the course of the history of the world at that time that wore number 77 other than me. And you got a Pirates pullover with 77 on it. Like, what are the chances, bro, all the way across the world that was the same thing? So to me, I'm like, I'm in the right place. I'm right where my feet are. Like, this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be learning this. I'm supposed to be giving this information to these kids. Like, it all goes right. That turned into me and Ron Renicky had a camp together there in Porirua. I was on that WBC staff. Good friends with me. Dodgers scouting gig. Like, it always compounds. It's a snowball, right? And at the time, you don't know, but looking back, like 100% God's hand was in some of that stuff.
So what are the age groups of the kids, and how many kids are in your, within your teams and everything? How many of you are affected?
So the programming is going to start in kindergarten all the way to year 2 old to do it in the WBC level. Like, that's where we're at this year. Since it's kind of our inaugural kickoff year, we've committed internally to a 12U team and a 16U team at the boys level, right? Funding depending, right? If we get a lot more funding, there's 16 different opportunities through Babe Ruth. We can send boys and girls, and then you plug in Pony, and then you plug in the RBI. So it's no different than 130 other national programs. Well, it's a lot different than 130 other national baseball and softball programs. We could do things a little bit different since, we're 2% of the population, much more catered, much more intimate type development processes, working with the Players Association on some of their platforms that are just going to be a game changer for these kids when it comes to recruiting, and allowing us to coach at a distance when, these Native communities are off the map that don't have the resources. We can go do a camp or a clinic there, get them on the platform, keep engagement, with them, whether it's pitch grips or popping balls up or backhands. Our coaching staff can offer, prescriptions, so to speak, on how to fix that, and movement assessments. I mean, we're doing it right, man. And we can, because we don't have 10,000 12-year-olds to worry about like at USA Baseball. So it's a slow process. Obviously, it's been a lot in the making, and a lot of support from different people and tribes that, I think 2 to 3 years, everybody's going to hear about it. So
That's awesome.
Now, how are you recruiting players? Are you using, are there particular locations that have like more participation than others, and then you're kind of forming teams out of that? What's that process look like?
So there's a couple different abilities that we have. One is kind of like an APB, right? Like within all the native networks, you could do traditional routes with social media and Facebook, but there's a lot of these tribes that have kind of inner tribal governing bodies that are like, so for instance, last Thursday I was up in Oklahoma and I met with the 5 civilized tribes: Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Seminole, and Muskogee. Like, those are all their chiefs, and they all have rec center, like they all have platforms to share with their members. So the messaging is not a hard part, right? Like, it's a very small world. So, a handful of people and the messaging can get out there. So again, small in our development process. Some of that might be like, submit your best and we'll see if we can go put a team together. But what it's going to be through Babe Ruth is this, probably the first couple of years, we're going to have a regional and a national. So Southern California region, we're in talks with a tribe there, Saboba, as our anchor tribe. They have a really good complex, 4 fields for the youth and a full-size field. And Saboba knows all the tribes. Like, they all know each other. We're going to have a regional tournament there, have a regional one in New Mexico, in Florida, like all around these hot spots where native populations are bigger. And to answer your question, Arizona, Southern California, and Oklahoma are probably the 3 biggest hot spots. All the way up the coasts. There's also additional population numbers. And then all culminating to a national tournament. If Saboba's our anchor tribe, that would be there, right? And best team goes and represents the 574 federally recognized tribes as our national team, and plays against USA, China, Mexico, Canada, as our own country's team.
And to follow that up, so has baseball as a sport particularly taken off? with the Native American population? Has
Yeah,
that been, I don't know where that, in that community, where the
right.
sports like allegiances, or popularity comes from, or what sports that
Right.
those the communities would be into.
So I would say it's very geographically like anywhere, right? Like, it's harder to play baseball up north because they like ice hockey. It's cold, right?
Sure.
So um if you had to just rank everything in a bubble, basketball is king, by
Okay.
far. And diamond sports is second. Lacrosse is popular up in the northeastern portion of the country.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't like, do natives even play ball, bro? Like, come on. And so when I was
Yeah.
trying to put that WBC team together, right? I found 17 pro guys that I would consider being on our team. And that's without any megaphone, without any social media, because I didn't want to promise something that I couldn't deliver on. And thank God I did, because we couldn't raise the funds in time. But yeah, so the guy who led the major leagues in saves last year, Ryan Helsley for the St. Louis Cardinals, enrolled
Yeah.
Cherokee. Robbie Ray, John Gray, like there's some Jacoby Ellsbury, Jabba Chamberlain, like these are names of native guys that can ball out. There's probably, I would think, maybe another 20 in the pro ranks right now, like just affiliated ball, that if asked, right, because now the PA has the ability on their platform to ask these questions. Once
Yeah.
we become official and we're getting, we need to check all the boxes we need to check with the WBSC, then those type things will happen. And I'll have like a spreadsheet of confirmed. Funny story. I told you I was a pitching coach in New Zealand for that team in the Australian Baseball League. There's a kid by the name of Lucas Jacobson at the time, was with the Rangers, and really good kid, had a very promising career, had a couple injuries, and in my opinion, he would have been a big leaguer, no doubt. But I check in on him once in a while, every 2-3 times a year, and I called him last year and, hey, what's going on, Lujo? And I'm just doing this, I'm working now, and blah blah blah. And we just kind of caught up with him. He's like, what are you doing? I told him about the Native Nation thing. He's like, oh, that's why you called. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, oh, that's why you're calling me now. Now, remember, this is a 6'4", redheaded, looking like a straight Italian, Fighting Irish, Notre Dame logo guy. No native look at all to him, right? And I'm like, bro, you're not native. And he's like, yeah, man, East Bend, Cherokee, North Carolina. I got my card and everything. I'm like, what? I had no clue. He's like, well, I didn't either, really, until I started looking into all of this. I'm like, well, then you're going to be one of my relievers for Tucson. You better get going, brother. So it's a small world. Like, nobody knows because nobody
Right.
asks. Like, and that's what I'm changing that paradigm too. Like, we're going to start asking. We're going to start knowing. November is Native American Awareness Month. Like, that's going to be in my plans part of the narrative moving forward as this thing rolls out. So it's just, look, I'm not reinventing the wheel, man. I'm putting chrome on it, in my opinion. Like, I'm doing things a little bit different when it comes to the national type program, in my opinion, and the way we develop and the way we're going to showcase our guys and so on and so forth. That we can do it. It's special, right? It's a really special product, I think, and that's where we're at with it. So I'm excited about it.
No, I think
I think it's great getting
yeah.
it's always great when you get baseball into different communities as well. So that's a market that we would have never
Right.
would never cross my mind. And like you said, you're discovering all kinds of players and that are already in, because we don't know all these things, right? I mean, he didn't grow up thinking, so a lot of people would grow up not thinking, hey, I've got native ancestry. But then they discover it, and then you've got a tie there. So that's pretty neat.
And it's no different than Dominican, Venezuela, Japan. Like, I like to say, like, natives were the second play in this game, right? Americans invented it. Well, there's some history on, like, actually stickball in native communities where maybe they invented the game of baseball at a different extent, right? Just like lacrosse. But anyways, we're first two to play the game. You talk about Puerto Rico and Dominican and all these guys, and there's some of the best players in the world. And why? Because there was some resources invested, time and effort, and people understood and cared, and now they're the best players in the world. It's no different here. And the crazy thing is, what, if you don't dabble in Native American area, that you just don't know, right? And that's not a bad thing. It's just you just don't know. And a lot of these communities, man, they have an infrastructure that's so far ahead of some of these Latin American communities at the same point in time. They got rec centers, they got swimming pools, they got weight rooms, they got access to kitchens and blenders and all of this stuff. Not all of them have the guidance or the pathway, the the ability to, teach at a higher level the game of any game for that matter. Basketball, there's some good players, but at Diamond Sports, obviously there's certain areas like Oklahoma, they're real advanced, but they just don't have the infrastructure when it comes to the teaching and the advanced portions of learning. But dude, they're so far ahead than you talk about other cultures where they started at.
Yeah.
So we talked about Babe Ruth, and one of the things that connected you and I was with Chris Rizzola and the tournament that they're putting on together this summer in July, which is going to be an international Babe Ruth tournament, bringing everyone from all around the world, which I'm excited about. I mean, I know he did it last year in the Bahamas, and now they're bringing it here to this area, so I'm truly excited about that. We're looking forward to it. We're going to be covering it. I think I'm going to have a team in there as well. Tell us about this unique event and what can you expect from it this summer, and what it's going to take to actually have your team come over here.
Right. So as Brian, you had brought up earlier, like how do you do this? So some of the people that I've talked to, we're trying to put a 17U team together for that tournament, right? And like anything, it always starts with funding, right? Do we have the money to send them? Like that's how we'll be able to send a team there. But I have an interesting call with the Braves next week. They do a Native American All-Star game with 40 different kids, 20. It's a showcase game. There might be the ability to kind of utilize their scouting already to maybe parlay off of their players into like, hey guys, like so Chris's tournament outside of Babe Ruth corporate, like he was the first gentleman to invite us as a sovereign nation team to his tournament, right? Like we have the World Series pathway and all that. So that's a really cool thing, right? Like a lot of our leadership, our board was really excited about Chris's offer to be a part of that. And so what we can see, like I can't say I've put eyes on all these guys yet. Like that game, I plan on going to that game and scouting and seeing what the best team we can put together. But I will say people would probably be shocked at the quality of players that we have versus what they might think we have, right? Like for instance, the Ryan Helsley, like I keep harping on Ryan because the dude led the major leagues in saves, man. Like that is an amazing accomplishment. That you're the best closer in the world, like hands down. And so there's these guys can play. There's no reason and the softball girls are even more gangster, man. Like you start digging into some of the native softball players, bro, they're legit. Even as like one community teams, these teams have been close to winning World Series in the past. So we'll see. And I'm sure we're going to be working through some scenarios where maybe we're too good for the competition because we do have a tournament pathway versus the American counterparts would have kind of like a local regional district kind of deal. And if that happens, then we'll have to adjust accordingly. But again, being 2% of the population, I don't think it's a far-fetched ask to allow us to combine communities because some communities technically are 200 people. Like that's a native community. That's a federally recognized tribe. Others are 24,000, right? But they might be in the weather that doesn't play baseball. So there's a dynamic, right? And the easiest way to think of this, and I learned this early on, is each tribe is truly their own government, their own people, the way they run their own way, like from a business standpoint, from a philosophy, from a culture. Like you just can't combine two and say that they do the same things because they don't. So a lot of personality.
So you talk about bringing the team together and making the journey. And you have your partnerships. Do you have partnerships that help you bring the journey, come here and be able to bring the team like for this July? Do you have that partnership? Are you looking for that partnership?
Yeah, we're always looking for additional partnerships, right? Like I think we're going to solidify this thing with Saboba hopefully next week. There's other corporate we talked with like Dick's and now Nike's involved with the RBI portion of that. Rawlings is involved, and some of these are in kind. Chubb Insurance is another one. Chubb Combined Insurance is another corporate. I mean, so there's several of them, right? We're trying to appeal to the Diamondbacks, the Padres, the Rangers, like a lot of these MLB teams now that we're part of the RBI program. There's programming that we can have access to, and so it's just a lot happening in the last 2 months. Just keeping everybody on point and getting the commitments and allocating funds to certain things is kind of where we're figuring this all out on the fly.
Well, I'm excited to see hopefully your team comes and gets a part of that tournament. And I think I know Chris wants to continue to grow this every year, and I think it's a great opportunity. I mean, I'm all about. I mean, I've been coaching. My son's 19. I've been coaching since he was 2. I love the game. I love teaching the kids the game. I'm old school. I don't do it. I tell Brian all the time. When I write my articles, I'm not about the sabermetrics. I'm about what do you feel like today? How are you feeling? Where's your mental capacity? How are you doing in school? What's going on at home? Because when kids are not functioning well in the field, I always go back to that. What's going on at home? What's going on in school? And like, coach, why are you asking me the question? Because that's going to help you play the game better if you're okay with everything else. So what you're doing with these youth, you're just giving them another avenue that they can help them manage through life and get them to where whatever they could be. Maybe they'll be the first Native American coach or manager or GM or something. So you're paving that path for them. So anything that we can do to help you, with one thing is the podcast, of course, but anything else we can do to help you, we're all for it. We want to make sure we go along that journey with you.
I appreciate that support. It's funny you say the something at home kind of deal. One of our big supporters, she talks about like her outlet from home was to go to softball and be at the field, just grind every day. Because when she's got to go back home, there's drinking and there's violence, and she wanted to get away from that, and that was how she stayed sane. So it's both best of both worlds on that aspect. And you touched on the sabermetrics. I'm with you, man. Like between the ears is what really will make somebody, right? Even if you are great, like I told you, just the pressure point of that, right? And I think I was fortunate to be able to be a scout and understand how, people are assessed and the values are assigned based on what the ball does, not necessarily if it's a good ball player or not. Like, I kind of relate it to the NFL Combine. You got these guys that are in Division II. Nobody's ever heard of this dude, but he practiced for the Combine, freaking throwing him up, and he's sprinting. And the dude now gets drafted when he was horseshit at his school when he actually played the sport, but he was smart enough to practice for the thing that they weigh the most, and he got his chance, right? And so I will like to combine some of that, to offset maybe it might not be a sexy looking player, but if we can get some sexy metrics, they blip on the radar, right? And then there's that chance to be handed it off, and maybe in 2 years you get physically strong enough to where that tool now does play, or it doesn't. Like, I'm not here to create big leaguers. That's going to be a side effect. I'm here to just keep kids engaged, keep them active. There's a whole health and wellness portion to this too. We call it home plates, and we don't just touch the kid, man. These are all community members, grandma, auntie, uncle, dad, and mom. Like, as our camps, they're getting skilled in the health portion, the holistic portion of this, right? Like, not a big fan of the food pyramid and the FDA. Like, if that worked, they still wouldn't be the sickest people in our country. They wouldn't have the highest heart disease and suicide rates and obesity. Like, that stuff doesn't work. And so we're bringing a whole new twist, ancestral type eating and thought process and cultural correct kind of foods and preparation of stuff like that's also a big part of our national program that I don't think a lot of national programs do any of that. So I'm proud to say that that's something else as part of our DNA that we're going to offer.
And my last point to all of that is, you're taking kids, like we talked about, from the home to the field. My whole thing is my parents separated when I was younger. So what my mom did, she took me to the Mets games. They were horrible, right? They sucked, but that was my safe haven. So whenever I walk on a baseball field today, it's crazy where my mind kind of forgets about the world and the craziness, and I'm just like in heaven. So you to bring these kids on to whatever, like you said, they may not be pro ball players, but they're going to be an impact in their life and their families' lives, and then the next generation's life of the 7, right? The 7 years moving forward.
7 generational forward, yeah.
So that's exactly
I'm with you. It's same kind of thing. Like, I'm not a big workout guy, and like I need to work out more. But dude, I step on the field and I want to go run poles, and I hated poles back in the day. But I'm like, I just want to run on the path and just kind of get lost in the sun and just play catch, and just I don't even have to play, but just want to be on the field farting around. And fortunately, like I said, I could still play a little bit now. And there's a lot. There's a lot of guys in Arizona when I was in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that still play, and there's a lot of camaraderie. Like this, the whole reason we're on this call is because we all love the diamond sport, and we're here together. So
that's awesome.
Well, DJ, we really appreciate you coming on talking about. We covered it all, right? Career development through from your young age through the minors and majors, and then all the good work you're doing now. And we hope that we can be a part of helping you grow your program as much as we can. So great to hear about what you're doing, and thank you for telling your story.
Well, thank you for having me and allowing me to be on your platform and be graced by your guys' presence. I appreciate that. I truly do.
Appreciate you as well.
You bet.
Well, Brian,
This
before
was
you end
episode.
it, before you end
Go
it,
ahead, David.
we have to plug Legends on Deck. We have to plug, our articles. We have to plug, if anyone is following, you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. We have some more shows coming up. We're on Spotify, and we're definitely gonna do what we can to help Native nations, get the word out. So check out the website for that and future articles coming up. So just wanted to make sure I share that part.
Yeah, thank you, David. Yeah, subscribe, follow. We're on all the social media platforms, so help spread the word. Episode 87 of the Legends on Deck podcast. We're signing out.
Thank you, guys.
Grown ups, in between, churning baby.